Well, good morning, everyone. Come on in. Believe it or not, it is 9 o'clock, and we're going to get started. Who's feeling warm right now? Is everybody warm? Right? We broke out the East Coast cold for 2025. But Merry Christmas to all who celebrate. And if you're watching online, Merry Christmas to you as well. If you celebrate, my name is Reverend Mark Chase. I have the honor of being one of the pastors here at All Saints Church. And this morning, when I say Merry Christmas, it has a special, it always has a special significance and weight. But this morning, as I say Merry Christmas, I want to also acknowledge that for the first time in 3 years, Palestinians were able to say Merry Christmas to one another in the city of Bethlehem. And so that is an occasion to celebrate this morning. When we talk about the Christmas story, we have to remind ourselves that the Christmas story is not make-believe, but that it occurred and occurs in a specific place with specific people. And Palestinians in Bethlehem is a part of that specific reality that makes Christmas something that is not make-believe. If you haven't had a chance to do so yet, please read Munter Isaac's article. You can just Google it, but it is amazing and a powerful reminder of the hope that happens when we remember that Christmas takes place and began and has its origins in the town of Bethlehem. That Christmas and that the Christian tradition is a tradition that arose from a Jewish Messiah in a Palestinian town, right? So we would do well to remind ourselves of those realities. So we'll pray, and then I want to introduce someone very, very special who is going to let us know how we're going to be anchoring and spending our time this morning. Amen? All right. Well, if you haven't done so in 2025, this might be your last chance. So let's take a deep breath in through the nose and sigh it out. Oh, that felt good. Let's do one more. Deep breath in through the nose and sigh it out. Holy God, we thank you for this space and this gathering today. God, we thank you for the hope and the perseverance of the Christmas story. God, we thank you that the Christmas story is not make-believe, but it occurred in the town of Bethlehem. It still occurs in the town of Bethlehem. So God, we thank you for the hope and the perseverance of the Palestinian diaspora that shows us the story of Christmas, the essence of Christmas, which is to hope when hope doesn't make any sense. So God, we thank you for our Palestinian siblings. We pray for their peace, their protection, their flourishing, and their liberation. Just as we ourselves need hope, flourishing, protection, peace, and liberation. So God, would you be with us in this space, anchoring us and reminding us in the hope and the reality of the Christmas story. In the name of Christ, we pray. Amen. Amen. All right. Well, I said I was going to introduce someone very, very special, and I'm going to keep that promise. So it is now my honor to introduce one of the leaders of our Middle East ministry here at All Saints Church. As we anchor ourselves, again, remember the title of this forum is Peace in the Middle East, which is often an abstract term that we use to obfuscate the reality that there isn't peace in the Middle East, and there can't be peace in the Middle East without Palestinian liberation. So he's going to talk a little bit about more of what that means, and his name is Randy Hine Lamb. So give it up for Randy Lamb, y'all, as he comes forward.
Well, as usual, Chase gave enough in his introduction here that I could just sort of say, do you have any questions, and let's begin talking. But we do have a little presentation today. And I also wondered when he was saying about introducing someone special, I don't think of myself as someone special. This is my home, my spiritual home, and so I am glad to be here with you. But I do have someone that I want to introduce to you, one of those diaspora voices that Chase was talking about here. And Michelle or Michael Benura is a person who I have gotten to know to a certain degree over the last, I don't know, couple of years, I guess it is, as he and I, along with a number of others, including some of your faces that I see out here with us this morning, have joined us out on the streets of Pasadena, first in front of Representative Judy Chu's office, and of late in front of both the main post office on Colorado and City Hall, where we have been trying to get our city government to divest itself from certain funds that it holds that we think are profiting from the occupation and the genocide. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but first of all, let me introduce Michael, and he'll have a couple of slides here. Michael's originally from the city of, or the town of Beit Sahur. Beit Sahur means the house of the shepherds, and it is traditionally thought of as the home where the angelic vision of the shepherds occurred, where they heard the first announcement of Jesus' birth. And it's slightly to the east and downhill from Bethlehem. So when the scriptures say, let us go, the shepherds say, let us go up to Bethlehem, they literally were going up the hill to where the birth of Jesus occurred. And unfortunately, the city of Beit Sahur has been a flashpoint over the last 30 or so years, dating back especially to the 1980s, excuse me. 80s or 90s? When was the first Intifada? Remind me. 1980s, thank you. Okay, I was right, okay. So the 1980s, and since that time, and unfortunately it's still in the news today, which I think Michael will be talking about. So please warmly welcome Michael Benura. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here, honored to work with Randy and with everybody else. I see lots of familiar faces. Ms. Wan, good morning. So when Randy spoke literally about walking up to Bethlehem, it is true. So I'm going to show you exactly how it look like. That's Bethlehem up there. Like this is, would say like the center of Beit Sahur, and if you see up the hill, that's Bethlehem. Okay, I know.
Speak loudly.
Okay, I'll speak loudly.
Like you're on the street.
Like on. Okay, so I tried to make my my speech informative, but friends and my daughter suggest that I add a personal dimension to it. But I promise my daughter to read it as is, so I'm gonna read it as is. My name is Michel Benura. It's Michael in English, but in my language it's Michel, which is after St. Michael's, because I was born in the month of St. Michael and next to the St. Michael's Church in Beit Sahur. I moved here 18 years ago. My family lived there for generations. Their parents before them, and so on. In fact, my ancestry can be traced back to the 11th century in Palestine. I have watched my city endure occupation for 32 years when I was living there. Before I moved here, and I have felt its pain wherever I turned. Beit Sahur is my home, lies just a mile from the Nativity Church. And it's not far from Jerusalem, sitting on 2,200 feet above the sea level. The air is crisp, and the climate is just as beautiful as Southern California. Its importance comes from its location. It's a crossroad for commercial roads and that run through the city, with merchants, tourists, often passing by because Jerusalem is so close. We cannot go to Jerusalem or through Jerusalem, go north or somewhere else. Beit Sahur became the hub that replaced Jerusalem for the commercial movement there. Bet Sahur is small. It's about 1,700 acres. Today is about 15,000 residents live in Bet Sahur, Christians, Muslims. They are like brothers, united in blood, faith in God, history, and hardship. The community of Bet Sahur is so young, a very young community. I imagine the 60 years old, they are average about 12% of the population. Makes the city as a very young city. My family has witnessed more than 57 years of injustice and occupation. I remember my grandfather telling me stories of early occupation, how it shaped their lives, and how fear, resilience walked hand in hand in every home. But through the word's ignorance, we are forced to find new paths. My father once told me, when the door shuts, we build our own. This is how we survived. Even as the world tried to divide us, and as occupation sought to cut us off from our future. During the first Intifada, I was a teenager, growing up like every other teenager. My father, alongside with hundreds of others, refused to pay taxes to Israeli authorities. He said, no taxation without representation. And I think most Americans are familiar with this term. What followed was a punishment beyond reason. The city was sieged for 42 days on a curfew, with a curfew. Empty cupboards, silent phones, military raids, and loss of our family savings. I saw neighbors getting imprisoned, and our community was taxed suddenly for broken windows and imagined offenses. My mother cried for many nights, fearful of our future, as she watched the land we loved being taken from us. In 1991, Bet Sahur lost about 800 acres in Jebel Abu Ghneim, or what's called today Harahuma settlement. Harahuma later, became a big settlement. Now it's housing about 5,000 settlers. Khalid al-Nu'man is also alongside with that location, also was confiscated and added to Harahuma as extension. Nowadays, the Israelis are planning to build a new settlement, which is the only opportunity of expansion for Bet Sahur. They call it Shidma. It used to be a military base. They withdrew from it early 2000, but now they went back because the settlers are pressuring the government to take over the site. As more ground slipped away, so did parts of our souls there. These lands held memories of our past and hopes for our future. Our community, Christians and Muslims, old and young, were taught to break bread, not bones. Breaking bones is an Israeli policy that in the first Intifada, the Israelis followed that if they catch any young Palestinian men, they break their bones with stones. And I'm sure you heard about breaking bones policy at that time. So Bet Sahur took initiative inviting Israeli peace advocates into the struggle. As a result, leaders emerged in the nonviolent movement in Bet Sahur to the occupation. Groups like alternative tourism groups also emerged and opened the doors to the world, sharing our story and our call to justice there. Every day I see people preserve the curfews, the checkpoints, and confiscations continue, but we refuse to let fear define us. Our story is one of suffering, yes, but it's so much more than that. I'm supposed to talk about the settlements. That's what Randy told me to talk about. So I'm going to share some maps, and I'm going to talk about them briefly. I was personally involved on those matters. At the time when the confiscation happened and the legal process was going on, I used to be representing the city of Beit Sahur as the legal representative because I worked as a lawyer back in Palestine. So if you see this map, this is Beit Sahur administrative borders. If you see the mouse, I'm not sure if you see the mouse here. Is it clear? Yeah, okay. So this is Harahuma, or the land was confiscated later. Next to it, there is two neighboring villages, Mtuba and Surbahir here. And the idea to confiscate this land and build a settlement here is to prevent Palestinian communities to connect together. So that was, the initial plan for the Israeli government. For us, it meant that we have no land for future expansions. My family also lost a land there too, besides other families there. That's to the northwest. I'm going to go back and show you the settlement today. Okay. If you see, here's the settlement nowadays. What you see right now is Beit Sahur in the back of the picture. It's on the far hill, it's northwest, yes, and this is the settlement here. So that area is now have this big settlement. Okay, I'm gonna use this slide, see what's going on here. Okay, okay, this one is smaller, but you can see the settlement here. And this is the other area that was added later, 6 years later. And that prevents Beit Sahur from expanding to north, which is another area where most of the owners here are from Beit Sahur. It's probably around 1,100 acres there too. And that's happened within probably from 1991 till 1998, so it happens within 7 years. Nowadays, okay, this is a satellite image. So if you see Osh Ghrab here, this is Osh Ghrab. This used to be a military base for the Jordanian army before 1967. It used to be about 4 or 5 acres. Now it's about the Israeli took more land. The expansion, I think, was 20 times bigger than it used to be in 1967 and after. This is the new expansion. This is the area that's marked in red. This is the area that got confiscated. If you can see, there is some Palestinian buildings within that red markings. So that's going to be the new settlement there. They have the plans to build it. They approved it. The process for them is very simple. They don't have city approvals and stuff like that. They find a financier or somebody who finances it. The government facilitates everything, the infrastructure. And then within 2 years, you see infrastructure and buildings. So we're expecting 2 to 4 years from now, they might have a few buildings, and I think they're gonna concentrate the buildings on the perimeter before they go back to the middle, because they wanna secure the perimeter first. Of course, right now, if you go there, you're gonna see towers, military towers. Settlers recently, 2013, they renovated an old structure there, using it as a cultural center. I don't know what culture they are trying to preserve there. So so that's the Oshgrab, or what they call it, Shidma. That's the now I shared with you the pictures of Beit Sahur West showing Bethlehem. This is Beit Sahur showing east. Now it's the other side of Bethlehem. If you see the area here, this is the area where the future expansion, which is the only future expansion for Beit Sahur, it's going east. And I'm not sure if that's clear. So this is the new expansion where, you know, we think that we have a chance to expand here. And those are the other Palestinian communities that we were looking for to connect with. But now with the plans to build a settlement here, we won't be able to connect and expand further to the east. So basically, the Israelis are trying to limit any Palestinian expansion in that area in general. Here is a bigger map for Shidma. And if you see this yellow line here, you see that yellow line? It's actually a security fence, and it's guarded by like there is a dirt road that military vehicles guard it on hourly. So if you happen to be nearby, you could see military vehicles going around back and forth. Make sure that nobody crossed that fence. It's about probably 20 feet high. And that's the Harahuma, and this is the extension for it. That's it. So this is the last one that I showed you. It's Beit Sahur showing west, which is probably that picture was taken in March or sometime in April this year. You can see how green it's in the middle. That's the only green space that we have besides Shidma, or that place that got taken by the Israelis. That place, when they withdraw from it in early 2000, people developed it to as a park area. Like they had park, they had playing ground for kids. They had those spots where you can take your family, go do barbecue. Now we don't have it. There is no entertainment whatsoever that kind in Beit Sahur, and that was our only place that we could use for that purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Sorry, a little technical moment here while I switch over to my, there's a problem with the drive. Scan the drive route and fix it. Okay. This could be.
Continue without scanning.
Continue without scanning. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can do this. Well, thank you, Michael. I want you all to know that Michael did a great thing in coming here. He doesn't like to speak in public. And he, as you can see, for his size, he's a very soft-spoken guy. But I really appreciate the fact that he gave, the story of his town Okay, I guess we're okay there. And you should have a handout that says Kairos Palestine Christmas Appeal. If you don't have one, John Eicher, who by the way was with me when we traveled over in November, he was part of the group that I co-led with Joe Rose, and John was there with us here, so he can perhaps when we get to the Q&A time maybe offer his perspective on this as well if we have time for that. The slides that I have, I'll try and go through quickly, but you do have the content of all of the slides in this handout. So you can take this home with you and peruse it at your leisure, and I do encourage you to do so. I didn't make copies of the larger document that I'm going to be talking about, which is the Kairos Palestine. It's called the Palestinian Christian Initiative, and specifically the statement is called A Moment of Truth, Faith in a Time of Genocide. If you want one of these after the program is over, there is a blank sign-up sheet there just with a piece of paper, and you can just write your name and email address, and I'll make sure that you get a copy. There's another sign-up over there that is a sign-up actually if you are willing to sign on to the petition that we have to City Council here in Pasadena, and I'll mention a little bit more about that later on, but I wanted to sort of take care of that. So as you know, I had the opportunity to co-lead a group to Palestine, East Jerusalem, the West Bank, and to a certain degree also in Israel proper in mid-November, returning finally on Thanksgiving Day. A couple of the group came home a little bit earlier, but I was able to stay on and visit some of the many friends that I've made over the years there. But one of the highlights of the talk was the time that we spent in Bethlehem at the Bethlehem Bible College. Yes, there is a Bible college in Bethlehem, appropriately so, and they opened up their space to us to allow us to have a two-day conference. We attended one day of that two-day conference when they did the formal unveiling of this document that I'm going to be talking about. But what I'm going to share with you here today is their Christmas appeal that relates to that document. And it's called A Cry for Truth, Justice, and Costly Solidarity. The reason this is important is that we here in the Western countries like the United States, Canada, some of the European countries, Australia, et cetera, a lot of the English-speaking world, are really seen as a lifeline for the Christians who are there. The Christian community is getting smaller all the time, primarily because of migration out of the area. Many people don't see a future there, and so it's becoming increasingly difficult for the Christians who are there, who are committed to staying if they can. But this type of forced migration goes on. Since I only have about 15 minutes or so with this to talk about, I wanted to, I'll run through some of these slides here fairly quickly, but once again, as I say, you have this in your documents. So Kairos Palestine, a little bit about who they are. It's a Christian ecumenical movement that began in Palestine, at least in around 2008, 2009. And at that time, they issued an earlier statement calling to both to their own society to resist the occupation, but also calling on Western colleagues and supporters, both Jewish, Christian, and Muslim, to join with them in the nonviolent actions of boycott, divestment, and sanctions. So this Kairos Palestine gathering was actually the 16th annual gathering since that first document was released in 2009. And unfortunately, that first document's impact was somewhat limited. It didn't get quite the coverage that they hoped, nor the follow-up from churches here. Our own Episcopal Church really did nothing with the document. Many of the other churches didn't. The United Methodists did. They had what they call their United Methodist Kairos response, which continues to this day. The United Church of Christ had more of a response. Even the Lutheran Church which also has a diocese, or what they call a synod, there in the Middle East, was a little more active. But anyway, as the slide says, it speaks to the first Palestinian community, then calls upon the churches and Christians everywhere to reject injustice and apartheid and to work courageously for a just and lasting peace. So this gathering was really to renew that call and to update it in the light of a couple of things. One, of course, is Gaza. We're all aware of what's going on in Gaza, what has gone on for the last 2 years after the October 7th events, and the response from the Israelis, which has resulted, as it says here on the slide, in relentless bombing and the destruction of homes, schools, universities, and hospitals, and the killing of entire families and the ongoing siege. So that is one of the two things that has really spurred this new document. The second being what's going on in the West Bank, in Jerusalem especially. Their daily life is really sort of controlled by checkpoints. And that was actually one of the things that I took home from my trip. I was there in 2024 in February and the early part of March. And in the 20 months that had passed since that time until I went again in November, the proliferation of checkpoints from somewhere around 300 or so throughout the West Bank, which is a big enough number, but now up to nearly 1,000 has been astounding. You cannot go into a village without passing either a yellow or an orange gate, either an orange military gate where the keys are controlled by the military and it can be closed at a whim, or the yellow gates, which are often more controlled by the settler groups, which also can control them based on what their perceived needs are. And so you run into this all the time. And it's very clear from this that the end game goals of Zionism, which have always been stated since the time of Ben-Gurion as the first prime minister of the state of Israel back in 1948, is to maximize the amount of land that they can take while minimizing the number of the indigenous Palestinian people like Michael and his family who live on that land. And yet they remain. Their presence is not a passive endurance, it's a living witness. They are the living stones of the land of the incarnation, the cross, and the resurrection. And so protecting that Christian presence and the Palestinian presence in general is not the longing for an earlier time, but a spiritual, moral, and human responsibility. So the Kairos Palestine document was born out of the rubble of Gaza, in the refugee camps that dot much of the West Bank, at checkpoints and in grieving homes. The picture you see here is the picture, of course, from the Lutheran Church in Bethlehem, where Munter Isaac, who came and spoke here, created what we recreated here a couple of years ago, Christ in the Rubble. A figure of Christ there in the rubble of Gaza, saying that is where Christ is present today, if anywhere, is among the poor and the dispossessed and those who are oppressed. So the Kairos document is a call to the entire Palestinian community. As Palestinians, it's their responsibility to stand firm on the land, to prepare a renewed collective vision for liberation, to protect the vulnerable and care for the environment, and cultivate social resilience as expressions of love for their homeland. And finally, to promote full equality and leadership opportunities for Palestinian women, affirming their essential role in shaping their future. One of the criticisms that the first document had was that it didn't really focus on the role of women, and so they have made sure that is corrected in this later version. Women play such an important role, both in the first Intifada that Michael talked about. That was really first led by women in the West Bank, and it was really the men who followed. So it's something for them to be proud of. But there's also a call in there for Palestinian Christians specifically to nurture a strong presence in the Holy Land, to strengthen their relationships between clergy and laity, which are sometimes strained, and to accompany and support their youth, especially through education, creativity, sports, culture, and civic engagement. So these are the things that the Kairos Palestine document calls for them. For us, however, the Palestinian Christians are asking us to do several things. First of all, to recognize what's going on, to name it properly, and then to act. And as they say here, our prayers are needed, but prayer alone is not enough. Our solidarity is essential, but symbolic gestures are not enough. And our actions must be urgent, because silence or passivity in the face of genocide is complicity. Back in the early days of the efforts to try to conquer HIV, the signs and the flags even that were out was silence equals death. Well, the same is true here in terms of the Palestinian Christian community. If we remain silent, the Palestinian Christian community and the Palestinian community in general will be obliterated, will be wiped out, will be moved elsewhere, will be choked into small little enclaves. And we cannot allow that to happen. So there are 5 things that international advocates must do according to the Kairos Palestine document. One is to name that reality truthfully. And this is one that really hit me, because I've often used the word conflict. What do you call it? Well, you need to call it what it is. In the case of Gaza, it's a genocide. That has been shown by a number of different organizations, from the UN to B'Tselem, which is the Israeli human rights organization, to Human Rights Watch, and to Amnesty International. Over and over again, the conclusions have been that what Israel is doing in Gaza is genocide. And it's a slow genocide also in the West Bank. It's the taking of properties. The West Bank is divided into 3 zones. I'm not going to go into all of Oslo, the Accords, but A, B, and C. Area A is areas like Bethlehem, which are primarily under both civic and police control by the Palestinian Authority. Area B is areas that are under civil control, but under military control by the Israeli army. And Area C are areas that are controlled by the military for both civic life and for police or for security control. 78% of the West Bank is made up of Area C. So that leaves another 22% that's in Area B, A, and B, where Palestinians have somewhat limited control. And even in those areas, if there is a perceived security risk on the Israeli side, or if they just want to harass people, they can go into any of those zones and close them off. So we need to remember that neutral language perpetuates injustice, and that speaking the truth is a moral, theological, and human duty. Among those other 5 things is to advocate for accountability in international law. You know, it seems like in the face of what's going on in Gaza, international law has been revealed to be a toothless tiger. And I don't know how we correct that, especially with the people that we have in our administration who are enforcing that toothlessness. But we need to come back to the point where we are going to say there is a value to international law, and that things like the Rome statutes, which we've never as a nation signed on to, ratified, which talk about genocide and apartheid, that we need to take our rightful place as being a leader in international law, even if it means holding our own military, our own leaders to account for what they do. We could talk about other areas of the world about that too. What's going on in Venezuela and the sinking of ships without proper legal sanctions. So this goes beyond what was going on in Gaza and the West Bank, but it certainly is the situation there as well. So holding Israel accountable under international law, imposing sanctions, boycotts, and arms embargoes, supporting prosecution of war crimes, and demanding repatriation and the right of return. Among those things that we must do is we need to reject theologies that justify oppression Back in the spring of this year, we had a professor come from college in Michigan, and he spoke about Christian Zionism. Christian Zionism was a lot like Christian nationalism in many ways, though it specifically focuses on end times theology and their idea that when Jesus comes, there's going to be this tremendous Armageddon final battle between good and evil, and that anyone who doesn't stand with Jesus is going to be destroyed. We really need to reject that type of theology and any kind of theology of racism, supremacy, and or genocide, including Christian nationalism. Dialogue with Jewish communities, committed to justice, is essential, and I really want to thank my Jewish friends in places like, in groups like If Not Now and Jewish Voice for Peace, and even to a certain degree, those more liberal Zionists in J Street, for standing up against the genocide. But dialogue that normalizes oppression with Jewish groups is not something that we can do, and is actually harmful and empty. We also need to practice costly solidarity. Now, you hear a lot of ministers and others talking about Dietrich Bonhoeffer and his work, The Cost of Discipleship and other things, and of course his life, where he opposed the regime of Adolf Hitler and died in a concentration camp because of it. But our solidarity with Palestinians must be public and courageous and willing to bear consequences. Some things we can do include visiting Palestine, which of course we did back, a group of us did back in November. Witnessing their reality and amplifying their voices. That's one of the reasons I wanted Michael to lead us out here today, to hear Palestinians talking about their own situation and to try to strengthen their communities. Silence, delay, or cautious diploma when people are being killed is a betrayal of faith and our own humanity. Another things, we need to support creative, nonviolent resistance. That's part of what we're trying to do on the ground as we're out there on the streets every Monday night, to hold up our signs and do our chants and eventually go over to City Hall and try and convince people to do what we think is a good thing for them. Participating in movements like the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement is another one of those nonviolent strategies that can be grounded. There are a couple of apps that I've started to use. One is called No Thanks, and the other one is called Boycat. Now, not boycott, but boycat, and it has a little figure of a cat, so it's cutesy in that way for those of us who love cats. But it helps you to avoid purchasing in companies that are profiting from or are complicit with Israel in the occupation and the genocide. So I encourage you, look on either your Google Play or your Apple Store and download these. They're free apps, and what they do is they allow you to scan the QR code or the UPC code, excuse me, on a particular item, and it will tell you whether or not it's one of those from one of those prohibited countries, so you can make intelligent choices about what you're going to buy. Another thing we need to do, talking about divestment and boycott, these are some things that you could do right now. Urge churches and other faith communities, your universities, your NGOs that you're connected with, unions and pension funds, to divest from companies profiting from the occupation and support BDS as a moral, nonviolent tool. And here's where I mention there is a sign-up sheet here if you would be willing to sign on. If you'd be willing to sign on to show your support for the city of Pasadena divesting. But this is one of those things that I encourage you to do because it is, as I said, it's one of those nonviolent tools that you can use. Violent resistance is something that we reject in general as Christians, following Jesus' message to put down the sword and to take up other methods, such as advocating for sanction and political pressures here, and putting political pressure on people. So one of the things that's currently in Congress is something that's called the Block the Bombs Act. And this is one thing I am very proud to say that our own Representative Judy Chu